everyone. Welcome and thank you for attending our HCBS Why It Matters training. This training is for family members and friends of individuals receiving California Regional Center services and supports. If you are not a family member or a friend of a person receiving services or supports, you are also welcome here today, and we hope that you find this information valuable.
We are Allo Consultation. We are a small consulting firm based out of Benicia, California. We've contracted with North Bay Regional Center to provide training and technical assistance related to home and community based services, or HCBS. We work throughout California giving this type of consultation and training to people receiving services and supports from the Regional Center, service providers, families, and other loved ones in Regional Center staff. We'll tell you a little bit about ourselves. Jackie and I are co founders of Allo Consultation. I like to share with people that I got my start in this field as a support staff, a DSP. I did that work mostly in residential homes, sometimes in day programs. I earned my master's degree in education in 2014. And prior to starting Allo, I worked at a Bay Area regional center in quality assurance, which is where I met Jacqueline. And I'll pass it over to her to tell you a little bit about herself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I'm thrilled you are taking the time to dive into this extremely important content. I, like Caitlin, started in this field as a direct service professional, but working in the day program and services setting. Those years completely changed my life, and in later years, I found myself working in special education with transition age young adults and teenagers. I later met Caitlin in quality assurance at the regional center and also did 2 years as an HCBS specialist at that same regional center. I believe that our work here at Allo in the provider services field and at the regional center has set us up to be able to give you a unique perspective that hopefully feels like it's full of compassion and understanding.
We wrote Why It Matters for family members and other circles of support to those who receive services through North Bay Regional Center. We created this training as a way to acknowledge these important relationships. We wanted loved ones and the people you support to know that home and community based rights matter and are helping people with disabilities all over the country live the lives they want to live. Here is an outline of our training and what we'll be covering. You can see that this training is broken up into two parts. In the first part of this training, we'll talk about home and community based services, including the history and background of HCBS. We'll later talk about the major shift or change everyone in the disability system is making in order to make sure these rights are being respected. In part two, we'll take a look at the federal requirements together, including some of the common questions we get about how each of these rights will be honored. We'll talk about the major themes of HCBS and who you can reach out to if you need more support. This is our request. We ask that you come to this training with a humble, compassionate, and questioning heart, and we commit to doing the same. This is one request we're asking of you as you make your way through this training. Some of what you might hear in this training may be exciting or it may be hard to hear. You might hear something and think, there is absolutely no way, or how is that even going to be possible? All of those feelings and thoughts are valid. And I want you to try your absolute best to press pause on those thoughts and feelings for now. For the rest of the time we have together, we're asking you to set aside any ideas you might already have or any strong feelings that come up and to meet us here with a humble, compassionate, and questioning mind and heart. And I want to share with you that we commit to doing the same. Here is a list of HCBS service codes. You'll notice that there are three categories: residential programs, day programs, and employment programs. There are a few service codes or types of programs that are not on this list. One of these is EBSHs, or Enhanced Behavioral Support Homes. You'll also notice that CCHs, or Community Crisis Homes, are not on this list. Although they are not on the list, they are included in HCBS monitoring. We also like to take some time here to talk about ILS, Independent Living Services, and SLS, Supported Living Services. These services are not on the list because they are already integrated into the greater community, and ILS and SLS are set up to support people in living their most independent lives. These are what is being called in presumed compliance. They are presumed to be in compliance just by nature of how their services are set up.
This is our HCBS umbrella. It shows a lot of things. It shows the way resources move through our system, and it shows who the major players in this system are. HCBS was put into place by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, which is a part of the federal government. They've been in charge of helping all the different states in this country put HCBS into place. DDS, or the Department of Developmental Services, has been in charge of that for California. They've been relying on regional centers like North Bay Regional Center and BRC to ensure these rights are honored and supported for individuals receiving services. Let's take a closer look at this timeline of events that led us here today. There are many more events to mention, but for the sake of time, we'll briefly touch on just a few of the most impactful. In 1981, the Katie Beckett waiver was signed by the Reagan administration, and it was intended to create a special exception or waiver to the rule that Medicaid funded care must be received in a hospital or an institution. So at the time, it allowed children to receive critical services and supports while still living in their homes within their communities. Now, the waiver not only serves children, but also supports adults all over this country in keeping their Medicaid. Here in California, that's Medi-Cal. So keeping their Medi-Cal coverage, regardless of where they are receiving their services. The word waiver is used because the state is waiving the law that says that support must be given in an institution. Many children and adults who receive services and supports from the regional center are on the waiver. In 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, was signed into law. Many people think that the ADA is just about physical accessibility. And yes, it is about accessibility, but it's also about making discrimination against people with disabilities illegal. It guarantees that people with disabilities have the same opportunities as everyone else. The main goals of the ADA are full participation, equal opportunity, independent living, and economic self sufficiency. Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act stops public groups, including state and local governments, from discriminating against qualified individuals with disabilities by keeping them from services and activities due to their disability. As part of the ADA, federal regulations were created to make sure people were following these rules. Now on to Olmstead versus LC. This 1991 Supreme Court landmark decision says that the ADA stops segregation of people with disabilities and that people with disabilities have the right to live and have services in the most integrated setting possible, which means that people have the right to be around whoever they want, wherever they want. This all sounds pretty good for the most part, doesn't it? There seems to have already been a lot of laws in place before the CMS final rule or the HCBS final rule was set into motion in 2014. So, why did the federal government think that we needed more law to support people with disabilities receiving services via the Medicaid waiver? I believe that the Olmstead decision needed more legal support. I think that the federal government felt that states needed more guidance and that there was a lot of opportunity to support states in being more responsible, specifically with following through with the major goal of supporting folks and having integrated community living opportunities. On March 17th, 2014, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services final rule, the CMS final rule, was officially set into motion. These 10 federal requirements and person-centered planning requirements provided another clear path for states to follow. By March 17th, 2023, it was required that all states be in compliance with the HCBS or CMS final rule. On June 30th, 2023, the California HCBS statewide transition plan was officially approved. However, there is still quite a lot of work left for the state of California to complete by the end of 2024. This is all according to a corrective action plan that the Department of Developmental Services requested from the federal government, CMS. The corrective action plan states that California and its regional centers must complete site assessments in 2024 to ensure compliance. At the time of this recording, we are moving into the year 2024, and we'll be seeing many more service providers continue to improve their services in a way that's in alignment with the core principles of HCBS. Why are we here? You're an important part of somebody's life. This person's life and their services and the way they receive support will continue to change because of HCBS. It's important that you're informed and on board so that they can be supported in the most beneficial way. It's important that you specifically are aware of these HCBS rights or HCBS laws. While it may seem like these rights make things more complicated, they're about making sure that everyone has access to these rights and the support required in order to experience them in the fullest way possible. You might be thinking, my family member already had these rights. They've had them for a long time. Wasn't this what the Act was all about? Why does the federal government think it's necessary to create new rights when we already have rights that say similar things? Well, we have already discussed this a bit when we were talking about the ADA and the Olmstead decision, but we truly also believe that previously established rights were not being respected or carried out across this entire country. And this is where HCBS rights come in. I specifically invite you to think about these concepts and federal requirements as we move forward and dive into them, and think about them as rights. HCBS is a new part of our system, and this is just the beginning. Going back to our timeline a few slides ago, I mentioned that California in particular will need to be in 100% compliance and implementation regarding honoring these rights for Californians with disabilities by the end of 2024. And guess what? On January 1st, 2025, the work still continues. HCBS implementation will continue to be a part of our system for decades to come, and it's going to take consistent effort, creativity, and dedication from service providers, regional center staff, and family members, and other circles of support.
We want to share some myths and misconceptions that come up when we talk about people with disabilities and these new rights. Please notice that we do believe that these are myths and misconceptions, and what we want to do with this slide is get them out of the way. Back to our request, keeping an open, compassionate, questioning mind and heart. Any of these will get in the way of being able to do that work. So we're spending a little time here to move them out because we've got some really big work to do. HCBS is only for, I'll let you fill in the blank here. Sometimes we hear this about a certain type of home somebody lives in or a certain diagnosis that somebody has. HCBS is just the next thing. It's too dangerous. You know, if you start telling them their rights, they're going to think they can have anything they want. They don't use words to communicate and won't understand any of this. This just doesn't apply to my adult child. They don't care, or they don't know the difference. They don't even want these rights. My adult child has the capability of a X-year-old. My adult child has limited receptive and expressive communication. This just isn't possible.
What do we need to do to move past this old way of thinking? We believe that what is required is a mindset shift. This means changing your mind. We're going to be digging into some new ways of thinking here. The right to adult status is a concept and training developed by Thomas Pomeranz, who is a trainer, clinician, and consultant in our field. Understanding the right to adult status is at the heart of all of this mindset shift. When supporting adults in your work life or personal life as an advocate, the most important thing to remember is this: adults are adults because of what age they are. How do you do this? How can we all get better at this? I think first and foremost, it really is self inquiry. And self inquiry is thinking about your own thoughts, your own feelings, and behavior. Next, it's just practice, just doing it, trying something new. And there's always room for growth. So, what are some of the strategies that we can use to show that we respect someone as an adult? Here are just a few ideas. Adult touch and tone of voice, for example. When I'm talking to an adult with a disability, I would use the exact same tone of voice that I would use with a person who does not have a disability. Hear the difference here. Hi, sweetie, in that exaggerated syrupy tone versus, hi, Carla. What's another way that we can show someone we are respecting them as an adult? Another way is not talking about individuals in front of them like they're not there. For example, I'm in a room with a person I support named John, two people he lives with, and three staff people. I've been supporting John today, and I say out loud, before you take over, you should know that John already went to the bathroom and needed some extra help cleaning up. It got really messy in there, but now he's all cleaned up. Versus asking the appropriate staff member to step aside and letting them know that John might have an upset stomach in a private way. All this to say, avoid sharing overly personal things about this person: weight, medical conditions, past indiscretions, or just anything that's not relevant or necessary. And lastly, ask if it's okay to touch or move someone or provide help when or where you have to touch their body. These things I've just mentioned are surely not all the ways that you can show respect, but we think it's a good start.
Another big concept within the mindset shift is presumed competence. This is the belief that a person has the capacity to think, act, understand, and learn, even if there is not tangible evidence that this is the case. This requires assuming that they are inherently capable. How can you do this? Talk to your loved one. Believe that they can handle whatever you need to share. Make sure they're a part of conversations and choices about their life. Pay attention to what your loved one is telling you. Pay attention to what your loved one is showing you. They might not always be able to use words to tell you how they would like to be treated or what they want, but more than likely, they are already showing you. And more than likely, you already know what they're trying to communicate. Try your best not to assume that it might be a behavior that needs fixing. Presume someone can do what they want to do. Presume someone can do what they're saying they can do. Now, we live in the real world, and if people with disabilities are being treated with the same dignity and respect that people without disabilities are, then people with disabilities also deserve to know and understand that life is full of constraints or limits, and that some things in life take time, and some things in life take practice, and sometimes people need support. Presuming competence also does not mean that we support somebody in doing something that could seriously hurt them. This is a fine line. Let's keep talking about this.
What happens if you assume someone is not able to understand something or unable to do something, especially if you're wrong? Well, what can happen is that that person can feel disrespected. Imagine being in that person's body, mind, and heart. How frustrating that might be. It might make you feel like you never wanted to try anything again. If people expect less from you, that might catch on like wildfire. And then everyone, or a lot of people, might expect less from you. And then what kind of life are you leading? Suddenly, what you aren't able to do shows up everywhere in your IPP, in the way people look at you and talk to you and offer or don't offer you opportunities. We hear this one thing a lot: this person doesn't use words to communicate. And then, guess what? 10 years later, 5 years later, whatever it might be, that person starts to use words to communicate. The people who cared for this person did not think that they were being harmful by not presuming this person could speak or use words. They thought that they were doing the best they could and thought they were understanding to the best of their ability. We all think we're doing the best we can, and we are. And there's always room for growth. And this is what's so exciting about HCBS. We're all being encouraged to see and explore what more we can do to open up and support the lives of the people that we support and having more independence, choice, and dignity. Presuming competence is stepping onto a new path. It's a new way of being, a new way forward. Let's talk about trying something new or experimenting for a second. When you try something new, there's the possibility of something happening or not happening, right? But without trying or experimenting, nothing changes. Things stay the same. Starting with presumed competence is critical because there's too much at stake here. We're talking about someone's life, and how incredible is it to just watch somebody try something new and succeed at it, or just to enjoy trying, or trying something new and learning from it.
Have you ever heard that quote by Tennyson? It's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. This is saying that it is better to have had the experience, even if it didn't turn out how we thought it would or the way we wanted it to, than to never have had that experience at all. And it's not up to us, to the person outside the experience, to decide if the feelings experienced were true, valid, or sincere or not. It's not up to us to decide if what that person was experiencing was truly love or not, or if that experience was a worthwhile one. One of the main questions we hear related to HCBS is, what if? What if my loved one gets hurt? What if they drink 8 coffees in a day? What if they befriend the wrong person? So let's talk about the dignity of risk. What is dignity of risk? It is a feeling or an experience. How someone feels when they have the experience of taking risk, even if one makes a decision that doesn't go the way they wanted it to. They still get the experience of the dignity of risk, even if other difficult feelings arise. I want to make an important note that the dignity of risk is not about the risk itself. And I also want to say, with a lot of compassion, this is universally hard across all relationships. Some examples of outcomes that make the dignity of risk really hard: heartbreak, physical injury, someone getting lost. But remember, the dignity of risk is not about the outcome, what comes after making a decision. It is about the process of decision making itself. It is not about whether the choice was a good choice or a bad choice. Only this person making the decision can decide what good and bad means to them. If someone makes a choice for another person or heavily influences that choice, the person doesn't get to experience the decision making process and loses out on this very human experience. We naturally, as human beings, want to protect someone we care about from experiencing a painful, dangerous, or uncomfortable experience. Traditionally, in this field, we have done so much to avoid and mitigate risk. And in doing this, we have become gatekeepers of dignity. Imagine that the center of this emotion wheel represents not experiencing the dignity of risk. In this space, people with disabilities experience the most basic version of these emotions. The dignity of risk occurs regardless of the emotional, physical, mental, spiritual effects of a choice. No matter what happens, the dignity of risk is still felt. Take this example of choosing the color of a shirt. This is a basic experience that doesn't carry a lot of consequence, positive or negative. Someone might feel something from picking out their shirt color. When I get to choose my clothes in the morning, it feels fine, but it doesn't make me elated or energized. The emotions that I can feel in this basic experience are pretty limited and they're not very complex. Let's take that experience and contrast it with an experience like being in a romantic partnership with another person. All of a sudden, decision making gets much higher stakes. Not only does the risk increase, but the complexity of emotions and experiences increases also. Depending on what kinds of decisions someone makes inside of that relationship, they could feel devastated, respected, betrayed, free. Supporting the dignity of risk creates access to these emotions.
Thank you for coming along with us as we reviewed some HCBS context and the mindset shift. We hope that you were moved in some way, intellectually, emotionally, professionally, maybe. These concepts are meant to be engaged with a meaningful and inquisitive heart and mind. It takes dedication to do this work, and it's not always easy. And this work is always changing. And that's because people change all the time. So, how can we commit to doing this work and staying open to a person who is changing constantly? How can we advocate for the people that we care about? These questions and answers aren't supposed to be answered overnight. And as you'll see in part 2, the federal requirements don't always have easy answers and overnight applications. Human beings are complex and dynamic. And with that, we're wrapping up the first part of this training. Thank you so much for being with us here as we've discussed the building blocks for this important content. Next time, in part 2, we're going to dive into the federal requirements and their language and what it might mean to you and the people you support.